Hi, anybody there? Hi guys, anyone there? Can you say hello? Can you hear me? Hi. Hi Minzala. Hi Tamanna. Hi Samira. Good to have you back. Okay, thank you. So I started a couple of minutes early just to make sure everything is okay. So we will. Hi Marine. We will wait for a minute or so. So have you guys got your watercolor supplies ready? There's a lot of shadow because of all the things I've kept. So I'm just moving them around. Okay guys, let's get started. So first up, I will talk to you about the supplies that we require to start watercoloring. Now, like any hobby, watercolors require certain set of things that is made for watercolor. Of course, you can paint on regular paper, like the copy printer paper. However, you will notice that a regular printer paper won't be able to take the weight of water and pigment and everything that we put on it, which is why we need watercolor paper that is, paper which is made for watercolor. Now, when you go to the market, like, of course, these days we don't, we shop online, but basically, when you go to any art supply store, you will notice that there are a lot of brands selling a lot of different kinds of paper, and you're like, okay, which one do I take now? So just pardon any noise that you hear from my children. They're all upstairs. They're a little stir crazy today. Um, okay, so when it comes to paper, there are like different kinds of paper that you will see in the market, but we can broadly divide them into two: cold pressed and hot pressed. By what it means really is it's the way the paper is made, but to make it easy for us beginners to understand, a cold pressed paper will have a bit of texture like this. Yeah, it won't be smooth to the touch. Whereas a hot press paper, I don't have one right now, but it will be pretty smooth. It won't have much of texture. This is by a brand called Canson, and on the package it says cold press, but it's a little bit smooth. I like this for lettering because it doesn't damage the brush pens and everything. The Canson cold pressed because it's not super textured like this one. This one is by a brand called B Paper. It's not as textured, so you won't. If you're using a brush pen, a brush marker, it doesn't get damaged easily because of the texture there. I'll show you some other examples. Yeah. These are all markers. Yeah, so this I have used watercolor and I've used a marker here to write for the calligraphy. So anyway, so the cold press paper is rough and it has a bit of texture on it, whereas the hot press paper, it's smooth. So basically how they differ is when you paint on it, you will notice the way the water moves and the pigment moves as well. So on a cold press paper or on a rough paper, you will need a little bit more water. So now this is a brand called Khadi paper, which is based in India. It has this is their rough sketchbook. So you will notice the texture is much more than the B paper, which means you will have to use more water to paint because the paper absorbs a lot of the water. So when I started out watercoloring, I found this paper a little bit intimidating because I wasn't really able to understand, how much water to take and how much pigment to take and all of that. I felt that my brush was always drying out quickly, but with practice, things are getting better. Like I'm getting a hang of things. This is currently my favorite paper to paint on B paper. All of the things that I'm showing you here are from our store. So I particularly like the B paper. It is textured, but it's not super textured. And I also like how the paint dries. Now to show you, this is Canson and this is Canson Montval and this is B paper, and I sort of like how this one dries better than this. This is also due to me taking a little more water than required, these hard marks here. But in general, I like B paper. So the kind of paper that you want to purchase depends on what is the ultimate result that you want from it. So for example, if you want to paint with gouache, you would go for hot pressed. But for watercolors, especially florals, people go for cold pressed. Now this is a black watercolor paper. Oops, sorry. This is by Stonehenge. This is by Legion paper. It's called Stonehenge. It is cold press. So the name will be written, the specification will be written in the product description in an online store, or if you're buying it in person, you can just look at the package and the package itself will tell you. So 300 GSM or 140 LB. So the paper, the weight of the paper is measured in GSM or pound. So it's saying 300 GSM, which means it's a fairly thick paper. It can hold quite a bit of water and pigment. It's not going to warp very easily. If you buy paper that's thinner, it's going to warp very easily. It won't be able to handle the weight. So it's written here, suitable for watercolor, gouache, metallics, acrylics, 100% cotton. So 100% cotton is a good sign. B paper is 100% cotton as well. So you can look at the packaging or the product description and pick and choose as per your needs. But basically what you're looking for is something that's 300 GSM or 140 pounds, or about 120 to 140 pounds. 100% cotton is going to make it easier for you. It's a little bit of a struggle in the beginning, but you will realize that as you keep practicing, things do tend to get easier. Okay, now that we're done with the paper, let's talk about brushes. I'll have a Q&A session in the end. So if you have any doubts, you can note them down and ask me. So brushes again depends on what are the end results that you're looking for. So for example, if you want to do watercolor lettering or watercolor calligraphy, then around size 0, around size 2 will do. This is a liner, size 2. So these 3 are enough for calligraphy because it helps you get a thin upstroke and a thick downstroke. But let's say you want to paint florals, then I would suggest going for round 2, then round 4. I can't find my round 4. I think my children are nicking it. Anyway, round 2, round 4, round 6. I don't have a round 6, round 8 and round 12. So I would suggest having like one small, that is round 2, and one big, medium to big, so around 6 or 8 is a good place to start. And then as you keep getting a hang of things, you can buy different size brushes. There are other brushes as well, like these flat brushes and stuff. This is good when you want to like cover a larger area, so you're not going with a small brush like this. So this is a good brush to have, but again, when you're starting out, you can make do with round 2 and round 6. Okay, now let's talk about, let me move this. Now let's talk about pigments or paints. So in the market, again, there are like a lot of different watercolors. You will notice people prefer a certain brand, and some brands are really good at marketing themselves, which means you will see them a lot more online than, especially on social media, than compared to others. So, oops, sorry, let me mute my phone. Okay. But in general, you will find 3 kinds of paint. You will find something. Hi, walaikum assalam. Good to have you back. So you will find paint in tube form. You will find paint in pan form. We call this pans. And then you'll find paint, watercolor paint in liquid form. So I'll show you how all of these works, but just to give you a quick outline. So this is a Japanese brand called Gansai Thambi. It's one of my favorites because you get, this is actually a bigger pan than a half pan. So this is half pan and the double of this is a full pan, but you will notice it's quite big. And also what I really like about this is that it's a very creamy palette. You don't really require a lot, so one set of 12 colors will last you for a really good time. It's not super popular on, like, you won't see a lot of people use this on social media, which is fine. That doesn't mean that it's not a great product. It's made in Japan, which is why it has a Japanese name, Gansai Tambe. So this is how you would find the photo on online stores and stuff. This is how it comes, and then you'll get a plastic palette as well. So sorry if you're hearing my second daughter, or my kid number 3 is not in the best of moods today. I think she's getting a little still crazy being at home for way too long. But anyway, This is Crayola made for children, washable watercolors. Given that this is only 25 dirhams, it's pretty good actually. It's not bad. It's not like the best, but it's not bad. And it's washable, which means that if children gets it on the wall or like on the couch or something, you can wash it pretty quickly. But talking about paints for us as adults, so this is the art philosophy. This is how it looks when it's in package, still in package. This is an opened piece. Some of the pans are missing because they're all mixed up. I have a few of these. So the issue with cheaper paint is that cheaper or low quality paint will have a lot of filler in it. It won't be just the pigment, which means that you have to keep picking up the paint again and again and again with your brush, and you won't really get good good saturation. The colors and all won't look great on paper. Whereas if you invest in something that's better, like slightly better quality and a little pricier on the pocket, you get much better pigment. It looks much better on paper as well. And you don't have to it doesn't finish as quickly as a cheaper paint, basically. Now these are all archival, which means that they are going to stay forever, whereas this particular one, the liquid Ecoline by Royal Talents, this is dye based, so they are not archival quality. Now Winsor & Newton is a brand. Hi, yes, Crystal Dreams is a lovely palette by Art Philosophy. So Winsor & Newton is sort of a professional grade, but something that you can invest in. You can get them in pan forms as well. I don't have one, but you can get them in pan forms as well, so it's not just tube. So this is a really good quality paint, and you will get lovely results with this. It can be a little intimidating to use slightly. This is the Ecoline. This is Winsor & Newton. I painted this with Winsor & Newton, and yeah, I think these were with Winsor & Newton as well. So this was with Kansai Thambi, this one. And I'll show you one with this one is with Ecoline. So Ecoline is super pigmented, very bright. It sort of brightens your mood immediately when you see the color. The others are not as pigmented. So yeah, thank you, Nora. So each paint, the composition is a little different, so the effects that you get on paper is a little different, and all of us have personal preference. So sometimes people will go for this, a lot of people these days go for this. Slightly more professional painters would go for Winsor & Newton, and of course there are much better quality, better grade, which means more expensive paints out there, but this is what I have with me right now. Now how to use these. So when it comes to watercolors, since these are all in its packaging, it means they are dormant. They're not being used for a while, right? So they are dormant, which means it's best to take a little bit of them, spray them with water. If you don't have a mister like this, you can just pick up some water with your brush and sprinkle some water. And then, sorry, I'm opening the wrong. So sprinkle water on the palette and just let it be for a while. Now with the tube again, just remember a little goes a long way, so you don't have to take a lot on your palette. A little bit. This is going to last me for of course it depends on how much I'm going to paint, but it's going to last me quite a bit. Sorry. So just sprinkle or apply some water and just let it be for a couple of minutes, and then it's going to wake up. So if you go in and pick up the pigment with your brush right away, then you won't really get the exact color. You will get sort of just the top layer of the paint. So it's best to just leave it for a couple of minutes and then, get everything else ready for yourself. Now, um, now let's talk about water when these are getting ready. So it's best to have 2 cups of water in front of you, and of course a paper towel or a cotton rag or something. So it's best to have 2. Why? Walaikum Assalam. Why do you need 2? Um, so in colors there are warm colors and cool colors. So warm colors, I think about the sun when I think about warm colors like orange, red, yellow. Those are warm colors. Hi, it's so lovely to see many familiar faces popping up. Thank you so much for joining. And then there are cooler colors like the ocean, blue, green, and all of that. So you can have one glass or tumbler of 1 container of water to wash your warmer colors, and then the other for cooler colors. Or the other way to go about it is that you wash your dirty brush or the brush with pigment in this first, and then you wash your brush again in clean water. So what happens is, let's say you're painting with red, you are done painting and you want to go to, let's say, yellow. So what you would do is, once you're done with the red, you would come here, clean it up, and then clean it up again, and then go to the yellow. If you don't do this, what happens is, when you're going to pick up the yellow pigment, you will have a bit of red in your brush left over, and then it sort of gets all mixed up. So it's best to have 2 cups of water when you're doing watercolor. And of course, a paper towel. So I'm just going to yeah, so these are getting ready. What else do you need? So when it comes to supplies, what you need is paper, brush, and paint, of course, a couple of cups of water, paper towel, and you're pretty much good to go. You can have painter's tape in your stash if you can get one. Otherwise, you can use the regular washi tape. So this is to put your paper down on your surface so that it stays put. So you will put washi tape on all 4 sides. So you will tape it down. This way, let's say if you're doing a landscape painting, like if you're painting an ocean, or if you are painting what else? Yeah, ocean or the beach or a sunset or something, you will be putting a lot of paper. Yeah, galaxy. So if you'll be putting a lot of water and pigment which can warp the paper. So in order to stop that, you can put tape on 4 sides and then do whatever it is that you want to do, and then peel off the tape. So this will reduce this bending that happens. And let's say if your paper is still bent after painting, in spite of using a tape, what you can do is put it under heavy objects, like put it under some books overnight, and by the next day it should be straight up. Other than that, you can have a masking fluid in your stash. This is not necessary. I'll show you how to use this in a while. But again, this is not necessary. This is more of an intermediate to advanced thing. It's not really for beginners. Um, yeah, so that's pretty much it. You don't really require a lot to start, but if you invest in good quality supplies, it will definitely make your watercolor journey smoother and faster to learn. You won't be like struggling, wondering what is going wrong. Okay, now what I like about watercolors is that if, let's say you have pigment in your palette that you have like you didn't finish using, you can always come back the next day and put some water and reactivate it. It doesn't dry like acrylic and stuff. So now we are moving on to um, techniques. I'm assuming most of you are here for the techniques. So this is the Winsor Newton. You can see how pigmented it is. So in watercolor, we won't be using white. We don't use white to reduce the, what do we call it? The tint of the color. We use water. So let's say whenever you purchase a new set of paint, it's always best to swatch it. So by swatching, what I mean is just take a little bit of the paint and then put it on the paper. So this is, can you guys see? This is the actual color, and then keep adding water and see. Okay. Keep adding water and see for like what are the different tints that you can get. There's a bit of masking tape. Sorry, masking fluid. I was playing with that before I started the live. So just keep doing like this and you will not like you will be able to make out from one color how many different tints you can get of the same color. Okay, so this is a good exercise to understand your paint as well as to learn the like to understand which exact shade are you getting. So let's say this is a paint box that you just purchased and these are the colors, but at the end of the day this is printed on paper, right, for packaging. So when you open this, open all of the paints and the packaging and everything, it's packed like little candy inside. So open all of that and then do this kind of swatch exercise. And this will help you understand how many different colors you can get with just one set. Okay. Before I show you the techniques, I think it's best that I talk about a little bit about color theory and color wheel. So as many of you already learned in school, we have primary colors, secondary colors, tertiary colors. So primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. Secondary colors are orange, green, and purple. Now, if you're like me and you can't really remember all the colors and which will look better with which and all of that, a color wheel is very nifty. If you can't get one now because of the quarantine and everything, you can always go online and I'm sure you will be able to find a free download or something that you can keep on hand. So I'm bringing it closer so that you can see. So Okay, let's look at the front side first. It's telling you what are the different sets of colors: primary, secondary, warm, cool, tertiary, and all of that. And then as you keep moving, so if you mix red with yellow, what do you get? You get orange. If you mix red orange with yellow, you get this slightly lighter tint of orange, so on and so forth. Let's say I mix yellow with blue, what do I get? I get green. I am mixing green with blue, what do I get? Sort of a turquoise. I still don't know all of the color names, believe it or not, but I don't allow those kind of things to stop me from doing what I want. Okay, violet, you add white, what do you get? You get a slightly lighter shade or lighter tint, so on and so forth. So it shows you what you will get when you mix one color with another color. And then when you flip it, when you go to the back side, it will show you what are the complementary colors, what are the triad colors, tetrad, and all of that. Why is this helpful? Now let's say if you want to make a piece, a watercolor piece where you are using different colors, but you don't know which one is going to look good with each other. It's not really easy, especially as a beginner. It's not really easy for us to understand. By the way, this color wheel is not just about watercolors, it can be used for all kinds of mediums and even for interior decor. Like if you're putting different colors of decor together in your room and you don't really know which one is going to look together with which, you can use a color wheel. So when I made this piece of watercolor lettering, I have used green, um, sort of orange, reddish orange, purple, a little bit of yellow, and this was layering. I did yellow first and then topped it off with a bit of orange. So I did this piece using a color wheel. I just wanted to see whether purple will look better, like look good with these, or will purple sort of be jarring, because some colors are not really easy to use. Like many of us go to blue and green, or let's say blue and yellow, because we know that those colors mix well and looks nice together. But with other colors we don't really know. So which is why I really like to have a color wheel on hand. And also um, so the technical terms, a color is a hue. Yeah, when we add black to a color, let me show you. When we add black to a color, we get shade, this. So if I add black to green, this is what I get. When we add white, this is what I get. And when I add gray, this is what I get. So by adding black, gray, and white, I can get even more colors. And this is all mentioned here. I remember seeing it somewhere here. Where did it go? I saw it like just a second ago. Yeah.
What are you painting?
So you have to, I mean, you can use this you can use this color wheel to understand which colors to mix well. Yeah, it's here. To understand which colors to mix well. So tint is color plus white, tone is color plus gray, and shade is color plus black. I'm sorry guys, my daughter is here. Let me just send her back to my husband.
The toilet.
Where did it go?
I want to say, Opa, close the door and you can put it in the quiet and you close the door. I'm just saying, Mom.
Sorry to keep you waiting. She sort of escaped. Oh dear. So yeah, that's pretty much a quick summary about color theory. Now I'm going to show you some techniques that you can try with watercolor. Again, because of the lockdown and everything, just use whatever you have, even if it's your children's school paint. Just use whatever you have and make the best use of whatever is available, and then whenever inshallah things get better, we can always invest in good paint. Sorry, I'm just moving things around so that there are no shadows in the video. Okay, so the first technique is wet on wet. So by wet on wet, what we mean is there's water on the paper, so it's wet, and then the pigment that we are picking up is wet as well. You see, this is wet on wet. Now let's say I want to do wet on dry. So there won't be any water on the paper, it will be just wet pigment. So you can notice the difference. There's more water here, there's less water here, so you can see how it differs. Yeah. Another technique that I love doing is layering, especially these days. So for layering, you will start with a lighter hue, like a lighter color. This has to dry, so I'm going to leave this here for the time being. Now let's do something called color drop. So for color drop, your paper has to be wet. And then I drop in another color. This is color drop. So you can see how it bleeds. This is Ecoline liquid. It was already there on my palette. This is Winsor Newton, the one in the tube. Another technique that I love and even children love doing is adding salt. So you can use, so your pigment has to be wet, the paper has to be wet as well, and then you sprinkle some salt. So I'm doing both table salt and some rock salt. You have to wait until it's dry, and then once it's dry you can scrape it off if you want, or you can leave it. When you scrape it off, you will notice a lovely texture because the salt has taken off some of the pigment. Next is dry brush, where your brush is completely dry and then you pick up pigment. You see that? This is a technique that a lot of people use on canvases with acrylic. I didn't see a lot of watercolor artists do this, so that's a fun technique. Um, then let me get another sheet of paper. Then we have gradient. Gradient is similar to what I just showed you earlier on, where I am swatching the paint. So you take a good amount of the pigment and then you keep going down. Your brush has to be considerably wet to be able to do this. So you sort of get an ombre effect. You can keep pulling it down and down. You can see. So let's say if you're doing something like a beach scene, you can use this technique. Yeah. So let me come back to this. I think it's considerably dry. Now I'm going to take another color because it makes it easier for me to demo. Don't worry if you hear my children cry. They are with my husband. They're not in the best of moods today. So this is what we call layering. And you will notice how you can see the one at the bottom here. So this technique is called glazing as well. So you can try this out in your watercolor painting. So here you can see how a lot of it has been absorbed. Yeah. Okay. So that's a lovely texture. Now the masking fluid, I'll show you that as well. I did that a while ago before. So I did that a while ago because it has to dry. So I have already applied a bit of masking fluid, and we have to wait until it's dry. So when you touch, nothing comes to your finger. And then what you do is you apply paint, like you do whatever painting it is that you want to do. And then once everything is dry, you have to gently peel off the masking tape. You can use your thumb, your finger, or you can use an eraser. Oops, I'm trying to speed up the process. Or you can use an eraser and take it off. And when you gently peel it off, you will notice that this area, so this area where the masking tape is, masking fluid is, it will have a white heart, and then the rest is covered with paint. So that's something that you can try as well. All right, guys, I'm sorry I'm hurrying a little because I can hear my son crying. Is there anything else, is there anything that you would like to ask? It's time for the Q&A session. Of course, there are a ton of other techniques as well. If you do a quick Google search or even on YouTube, techniques of different watercolor techniques, then you will find plenty of them. This is a fun one that you can do with plastic packaging or Ziploc or something that's lying around. Just add different shades that mix well. And then you can put the paper on top, or you can put the plastic. If you want, you can move it around or you can leave it as it is. You can crinkle it a little here and there. And then when you lift it up, you will get a lovely background. You need more pigment and water here. So every time you will get something new. How can I control hardline? Okay, so the reason why hardline happens is because there's too much water on your brush. So okay, let me take another one. What you can do is, I'll just show you. Okay, there's too much water here. You can see a puddle, right? So you can go in with a dry brush. You can dry this brush itself, or you can pick up another dry brush. Pick it up. So you lift the color of the paper like that. That's one technique. You can even do it with a Q-tip if you don't have like an extra brush or anything. Another thing to do is that always just dab. So this is how it is before I dab, and I'm just dabbing it on the paper towel, and then oops, that's 0. Like that. So you will notice that when you dab on your paper towel, some of the pigment or the water is gone, and then you can paint and you will notice a difference. So this is a lot of water, this is little water, this is very little water. So it's because there's more water on your brush, and that's the reason why that's happening. Another thing that you can do is, if you are sort of like painting a larger scale, let's say you're painting a beach scene or something, and you can just push this like that. So when you push this water and pigment, this way you can reduce the hard line. Is there anything else? You're welcome, Noora. Anything else that you guys want to know? Now, when you are new to painting with watercolors, especially if you want to learn florals, like if you want to learn how to paint florals, it's best to learn mark making as well. So by mark making, what we mean is drawing different strokes. So I'm using just the tip of the round brush. The reason why many of us love the round brush, especially for florals, is that the tip is pointed, so you can get a thin line with a point, but it has a good body as well, which means you can get a thick stroke as well. Let me see. So you can get a thin stroke like that, and you can get a thick stroke like that. So you're able to, let's say, paint a leaf with a round brush itself. You don't need to go get another brush for that. So with just, that's too much water. So with just one brush, you're able to do both, which is why we go for a round brush when it comes to florals. So just do these kind of strokes and understand how the brush works, and get used to the brush as well. Flowers or florals, they don't fall under basics, because this session is all about getting started. What are the supplies that you need to buy? How does the pigments work and all of that? And understanding the basic techniques. You have to understand the very basics of how things work before you can paint florals, right? So So what I just did was wet on dry. It's a dry paper and I've picked up wet. And now I'm going to drop in some color. So these are the two techniques that I showed you earlier. Now let's say I want to do wet on wet. You will see a lot of watercolor artists doing wet on wet technique for florals, I mean. So you take some water and you paint just with the water first, and then you go and take some pigment. So depending on how much, this is too much water, which is why the pigment is not showing at all. Depending on how much water you have applied, you will get varying results. Another thing that I've learned the hard way is how we hold the brush. So we tend to hold it very close like we do with pen and pencil. We don't have to do that. You can hold it far, and especially if you're painting loose, where you're not sketching and you're just painting florals that looks like florals but are not like actual real life florals, it's best to hold it far and then gently. You're gently touching the paper. You're not really, like, you're not pushing hard like that. And you're sort of floating. You know, your brush is sort of floating on the paper. This is a 5-petal flower, which is pretty much the only flower that I'm comfortable painting in front of people. But even that takes a bit of an effort for me, because I am more of a watercolor calligraphy person than a watercolor floral person. You can see. Anything else, guys? We're about to hit an hour, so anything else you would like to know? You can see how too much water has sort of ruined this flower. But it's all with practice. Everything gets better with practice. So as you keep doing painting again and again, you will understand how to, like, how much water. There's no set ratio for that. Like, there's no ratio for how much paint and how much water. It's all about what results that you're trying to achieve and then adjusting accordingly. Okay, guys, looks like you don't have any questions. If you think of something a little later, you can always come back and leave a comment and I'll reply to that. All of the supplies used here are from ppsue.com and I'll list them under the description box once this goes once this is up on the YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being here. Please do subscribe and do join back whenever I do another session. I'll see you soon. Wassalam.